Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce information and insights on this Monday morning. This webinar is being hosted primarily to help support your business and other small businesses in the North Texas area through this very challenging period of time, COVID-19. And as you know, this is part of a series of webinars that the Chamber is hosting to provide you with various aspects of information to help you weather this difficult period of time. Joining us today is Dallas CEO of BBVA, Key Coker. Key is responsible for an integral part of BBVA's business development efforts here in Texas, in addition to all commercial and wealth management banking activities for the bank in the North Texas area. He is a very strategic partner to all the different lines of business within the bank and is responsible for providing leadership in the community and spearheading a number of the bank's initiatives. We are really honored, Key, that you took the time out of your busy schedule to join us and to share your insights and thoughts with our members on how their business might be able to work with BBVA or other banks during this time to kind of weather the storm, if you will. With that, Key, I'd like to hand it over to you. All this call is it's for general guidance only. We ask you not to act on any of the advice, but instead to check with your lender or to contact BBVA if you're interested in working with them directly so that they can evaluate your business on its own terms and merits as opposed to taking the general advice and acting on it. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer in there. And then also Key has very generously offered to field questions from our audience today. So we will leave time at the end for Q&A with Key. And finally, we may be publishing this webinar on our YouTube channel. So again, you can go to our YouTube channel, USICOC DFW, and find all the videos from our webinars that we've been hosting listed there. And that's there for your viewing and for your understanding, and you're welcome to share those videos as well with other businesses that you think may benefit from them. So with that, please join me in welcoming Dallas CEO of BBVA, Key Coker, who's going to walk us through banking insights related to COVID-19. Thank you so much, Key, for joining us. It's all yours.
Neil, thank you very much. Just a quick check to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, great. Well, I'm very honored and pleased that you reached out and asked that I join your group this morning to go through this presentation. I hope that they find it informative and helpful. I would like to cover a few things. First of all, for those that may not be as familiar with BBVA, I'd like to go through a few statistics there on our organization. BBVA is 163 years old. We started the organization in 1857 in Bilbao, Spain. And today we have offices in over 30 countries around the world. Here in the United States, we have offices in mostly the Sun Belt region of the United States. And more specifically in Texas, just to put a few things into context, BBVA USA is the fourth largest bank in the state of Texas. And I would assume that most of those on the phone this morning are all based here in Texas. Our concentration in Texas is very fortuitous because we have over 50% of our U.S. deposits in the state of Texas, which is fantastic. So there's just a few statistics for you on our global and our Texas operations. Certainly, I'll be glad to field any questions regarding our organization at the conclusion of this. So I think, Neil, based on some of the information that you provided me, that one of the items that we probably should spend most of the time on this morning is the recently rolled out Pay Paycheck Protection Program. And this program was officially rolled out on Friday of last week. And it's going to go through June the 30th for applications, though there is some speculation that the $300+ billion of allocated funds would not actually last that long, that they may be used up much sooner than that. There has been communication, as you all have probably seen, that there may be a second incentive plan that would come out that may increase that, but that is to be determined. So if you don't mind, I'll go through a few of the specifics on the Paycheck Protection Plan. And Neil, I appreciate your disclaimer at the beginning of this. I'd like to echo that because I am not an SBA expert, and some of the information I'll be providing hopefully will be accurate, but once again, I appreciate your offering up that disclaimer. So for those of you on the phone, the Paycheck Protection Program, also known as the PPP internally, it's a loan designed to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on the payroll. And Neil, I thank you for sending out that information late on Friday about this program. I'll try not to be redundant, but I'll try to cover some of the specifics on this program. So the SBA will forgive loans if all employees are kept on the payroll for 8 weeks and the money is used for payroll, rent, mortgage interest, or utilities. You can apply through any existing SBA 7A lender or through any federally insured depository institution, federally insured credit union, and farm credit system institution that is participating. Not all banks and credit unions are participating, but BBVA is. Other regulated lenders will be available to make these loans once they are approved and enrolled in the program. You should consult with your local bank as to whether it is participating in the program. I have received several calls from individuals, companies that indicate that their financial institution is not participating. So you'll want to check with your financial institution to confirm their participation. As I mentioned a few moments ago, lenders began processing applications on April the 3rd of last week. And the program, once again, runs through June 30th of 2020. And Neil, I will be glad to provide the link to the SBA site that you may want to share with your chamber members because it has a lot of this information in there.
That would be great.
Let's see. Certainly. Who can apply? Well, this program is for any small business with less than 500 employees, including sole proprietorships, independent contractors, and self-employed persons, private nonprofit organizations, or 501c19 veterans organizations that have been affected by the COVID-19. Businesses in certain industries may have more than 500 employees if they meet the SBA size standards for those industries. And once again, on that site, it'll go into more detail about what the SBA size standards are and how you might be able to actually have more than 500 employees and qualify. Small businesses in the hospitality and food industry with more than one location could also be eligible if their individual locations employ less than 500 workers. So you can see that small bit of information is not all comprehensive or inclusive, that probably from that one statement, there are probably a variety of questions that the group will have. And we'll try to address some of those at the end. But once again, the SBA site may be the best for that. So let's talk a little bit about the loan details and the forgiveness. The loan will be fully forgiven if the funds are used for payroll costs, interest on mortgages, rent, and utilities. Due to likely high subscription, as I mentioned a few moments ago, at least 75% of the forgiven amount must have been used for payroll. Now, these statistics and this information I'm providing to all of you is not BBVA information. This is coming from the SBA. And there is still a bit of a learning curve for all of us on exactly the ins and outs of this program. Loan payments will also be deferred for 6 months. No collateral or personal guarantees are required. Neither the government nor lenders will charge small businesses any fees. Now, forgiveness is actually based on the employer maintaining or quickly rehiring employees and maintaining salary levels. Forgiveness will be reduced if full-time headcount declines or if salaries and wages decrease. So as I said on the onsite, that the actual rationale for this program is to maintain and or to quickly rehire some of your staff and some of your employees. The loan has a maturity of 2 years and an interest rate of 1%. Now, there has been a lot of information out there about this program, and there's been a lot of variety of information, and obviously it's not all accurate. I've heard some rates of 4%, I've heard rates of 5%, but the SBA website indicates that the maturity is 2 years with an interest rate of 1%. So if you wish to begin preparing your application, then I would suggest you go to the SBA site, which I'll provide to Neil, and the application is there, and that will help you to get started. So that is a little bit, Neil, about the payroll protection program. Now, I believe in some of the information that you sent to me, you also asked about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Emergency Advance. And so let me walk through that just a little bit as well. In response to COVID-19 pandemic, small businesses in all U.S. states, Washington, D.C. and territories are eligible to apply for an Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and it's known as an acronym of EIDL. The advance can go up to $10,000. This advance will provide economic relief to businesses that are currently experiencing a temporary loss of revenue. Funds will be made available following a successful application. The loan advance will not have to be repaid. Eligibility. Okay, so the SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan provides vital economic support to small businesses to help overcome the temporary loss of revenue they're experiencing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. This program is for any small business with less than 500 employees, including sole proprietorships, independent contractors, and self-employed persons, private nonprofit organizations, or 501c19. So very similar to the payroll protection program as far as eligibility. Businesses in certain industries may have more than 500 employees, just like the other program, provided they meet the SBA size standards. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance Funds will be made available within days of a successful application, is what the SBA is telling us. So they're trying to turn those around very, very quickly, recognizing the very strong need of the businesses out there. So that's two of the programs available through the SBA. A third is the SBA Express Bridge Loan. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that one because it is different, obviously, than the other two. Express Bridge Loan Pilot Program, all right, allows small businesses who currently have a business relationship with an SBA Express lender. So there's a different caveat than what you heard in the other two. Have a business relationship with a SBA Express lender to access up to $25,000 quickly. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Emergency Advance is $10,000. The SBA Express Bridge Loan Program is $25,000. These loans can provide vital economic support to small businesses to help overcome the temporary loss of revenue they're experiencing, and can be term loans or used to bridge the gap while applying for a direct SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan. If a small business has an urgent need for cash while awaiting for decision and disbursement on the EIDL, they may qualify for an SBA Express Disaster Bridge Loan. terms up to $25,000, fast turnaround, will be repaid in full or in part by proceeds from the EIDL loan. All right. So in addition to that, the SBA debt relief program, there are other avenues through SBA, such as the 504 program and the 501 program and the 7A program. Those are more traditional financing options available through the SBA. Now, there are several things that BBVA is doing to assist our clients during this very, very difficult time. And if you don't mind, Neil, maybe I'll go through a few of those as well. Recognize that we may have a few clients actually on the phone with us today.
Yes.
So I was provided with a few questions, and I'll go through these questions, and then I'll provide with you a few responses to those as well. So what short-term funding financing options is the bank offering? So regarding the PPP program, which rolled out on Friday, we have been very active in that program throughout our U.S. footprint cities. And it's been getting us up to speed throughout last week, and then becoming very familiar with the program. We've had numerous internal meetings throughout the week and then again on Friday, and have been working through the weekend to get the applications, the full applications from our clients, and then to try to quickly as possible get those applications submitted to the SBA so that we could get those funded. And actually, I'm encouraged to say that we have had some approvals over the weekend, and certainly will be receiving more approvals today. We understand that this pandemic has put many of our customers in a position of uncertainty, and we're working to take some of that burden off of them. As such, we're offering fixed-rate small business loans of up to $50,000, with first payment not due until 90 days after they actually open the credit facility. We're also offering deferred and extension payments on existing small business loans. And so I'll offer this advice that if you have an existing loan with your financial institution and you are experiencing difficulty in your business, then I would encourage you to reach out to your banker and have that conversation with them, and go in, certainly not in person, but discuss with them over the phone some of the specifics of what you're experiencing with your business, and go through those numbers with them. And the question 2, are there changes to long-term financing options? Well, with the passage of the CARES Act in Congress, as I mentioned, comes the Payroll Protection Program. And this is something, as I've also alluded to, that we are very, very involved in. Excuse me. When you apply through the SBA, when you fill out that application, once again, you'll send it over to your bank, and they will gather the additional information from you. That most of that information is going to involve your payroll information, and there has been some confusion around what does the bank require, and we have our own checklist, which BBVA has put together, and it may differ from bank to bank on the information that they're wanting to see, but some of the information that we're going to want to look at is going to be heavily focused on the payroll. And some of the tax documents that we're going to look at is IRS Form 941, your 2019 state tax filing records, your 2019 federal tax return, if possible, your 1099 miscellaneous, your IRS Form 1040 Schedule C. Payroll documents for 2019 could include payroll ledgers or similar affecting each employee's compensation for 2019. Additional documentation may be provided to support vacation pay, group health insurance, retirement benefits, or other amounts the applicant has included. The bank is required to confirm the information presented by the applicant demonstrates the applicant had employees with the borrower paid salaries and payroll taxes on or around February 15th of 2020. So this information could include payroll ledgers or summary reflecting each employee's compensation for February of 2020. For business validation, each applicant must provide the following supportive documentation. So for a corporation, we'll need articles of incorporation or bylaws. LLCs will need articles of organization and operating agreements. Limited partnerships, we're going to need certificate of limited partnership and a partnership agreement, and so on and so on. I won't go through all the details on that, but that's just some of the documentation that will be required. Now, I don't know. That's we've run about 30 minutes now. Perhaps we should go ahead and open it up to some questions at this time.
So everyone, at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there is a Q&A box. You can enter your questions into there. Alternatively, you can enter them in the chat box, and I will help field those questions, and we can get them over to Key Coker. So Key, while we're waiting for people to enter their questions in, let me ask a couple of questions that I know have come up from some of our members. One of the questions is, what if I have an existing loan, either with the bank or with the SBA, or through the bank, that's an SBA loan. Do I qualify to still apply for these loans? How does that work? If I already collateralized those loans and I don't have any additional collateral available, how does that work? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, let's go through a couple of different scenarios, and once again, Neil, I'll provide up that disclaimer that to the best of my knowledge. All right, I'll throw that out there because this is a bit of a moving target as we're all trying to get up to speed on the SBA programs, and each day is a bit of a learning curve for all of us right now. But let's take the most simple scenario that today. Let's assume that you have a working capital line of credit with your financial institution, and I've got to assume that everyone on the line has experienced difficulty these last 2 weeks. So I would encourage everyone to work with either their CPA or their CFO, their treasurer, or whatever resource you have made available to you to put together some cash flow projections. And, I think that it would be advantageous for everyone to really work through a stress scenario there. And there are online, you can go out there and research cash flow projections, and there are models available at no cost that you can access through Google. But I'm certain that most everyone on the phone probably has done this exercise in the past. But I think now, because of the very chaotic times and this pandemic, that it's a tremendous exercise for everyone to go through. And so where do you start? Well, an extreme example would be assume that the expenses and the revenue that you experienced since March the 15th will continue for the next 6 months. I know that probably sent shivers through a lot of those on the phone right now, but that would be the stressed scenario. Let's assume that nothing improves for the next 6 months. And if that is the case, then you want to take as a base case your revenue and your expenses from March 15th forward, and you could use it through Friday of last week. You'll have those actual numbers. And then do a forecasting on if that continues, if your revenue continues at that level and your expenses continue at that level, what does your cash position look like 1 month out, 2 months out, and 3 months out from today? So if you have adequate cash to meet your needs and your revenue is holding steady, then that's fantastic. But if it's not, then you're going to need to look at alternatives. And those alternatives, I'm not really comfortable sharing with you what those might be, but obviously if the revenue is going to stay at those low levels and your expenses are not, then one will need to be adjusted. Either the revenue will need to go up or the expenses will need to go down. So look at a beginning cash position and then forecast that cash position based on those last 2 or 3 weeks. So that's number one. Number two is having those conversations with your banker. You know, I am now in my 40th year of being a banker in Dallas, Texas, and I'm of the opinion that there is no such thing as too much information for your banker. And so the more information they have, the more intelligent decisions they're able to make and the more advice they're able to provide to you. So you may think that it's a little bit too much information, but I think in these times it's probably best to go ahead and provide as much detail and information to them as you possibly can. So that's assuming you just have a standard loan with your bank today. If you have a working capital line of credit, then you need to look at, is it on a borrowing base? Is it secured by receivables, inventory, equipment? And if so, how much availability do you have under that line of credit? And that too would play a part in your cash availability on a go-forward basis. Now, if you are experiencing difficulty and you feel like it's going to be very difficult for you to continue to make your payments to your financial institution, then it would be my opinion that you should have that conversation with the banker much sooner than later. Go ahead and get them fully informed on exactly what your position is. And that cash flow forecasting will be a very valuable tool for both them and for you. And you may need to have the conversation with them about some deferral of payments or restructuring of your credit facility. So I would encourage you that if you are in a situation where cash flow is not going to be sufficient, that you go ahead and have those conversations with your banker as soon as possible. Great. So regarding the SBA, so Neil, I'm going to throw a full disclaimer on this one, that if you have an existing SBA loan, well, let's take it this way. If you have an existing loan with your bank, are you eligible for an SBA loan? The SBA website that I reviewed did not indicate that you are not eligible for a payroll protection program loan if you have a loan at another institution. It is my understanding that these SBA payroll protection plan loans do not require personal guarantee, do not require collateral, and they are 100% guaranteed by the SBA. And I think you may have had a third question in there as well.
Well, we can hold off on my third question. We have several questions that popped up in the Q&A box, so let's address those. How do relief packages help early stage software startups with development expenses, but they're not yet at the revenue generation point in their business?
So, or asked maybe another way, is are they eligible for some of the SBA relief programs?
Correct.
Is that okay? That's a very good question. There is no revenue limit that I have seen that indicates that you have to have revenues of X and above to qualify for any of these coronavirus relief options. Now, a couple of particulars that I have read, and once again, I don't know these statistics to be factual, so I'm not going to get too specific, but the maximum amount that I have heard is up to $10 million in lending, and on the employee payroll, that it would exclude payroll over $100,000 for any single employee. So there are specific limitations, but I have not heard one regarding a minimum revenue size.
Great. Our next question, Key, is have you seen approval of the economic injury disaster loans and PPP by the SBA where the money has been directly deposited into business accounts? And I think you kind of answered that.
Well, that's a great question, yes. And certainly it's much, much easier. In fact, we have to have an account to deposit the funds into, and the funds are coming from the bank. The government guarantees that loan, but to kind of walk you through the process, the application and the supporting documentation is provided to the banker. The banker will review that for accuracy. They may review questions with the client to make sure there's clarity. And then they will provide that to our underwriting department to once again check through that. Then it'll be provided to the SBA for their approval. And once they've approved it, then the funding would actually go into the business's account at their bank.
Got it.
Okay.
Next question. What is the average timeline for the bank to underwrite a PPP application?
You know, it's so new, Neil, that I don't know that I have a response on that. We just began the program on Friday, and the learning curve has been pretty steep for all of us on this. And we have received approvals on several loans already. Working through the weekend, I know that several of our teammates across the U.S. footprint have already received SBA approvals. But I don't know that we're far enough into this program to give you any kind of an average turnaround time just yet.
Got it. Thank you for that. We have one more
I would
question.
say that the sooner they can get their application into their bank, the better.
I have another question here. The cash allocation for the EIDL program is about a $2 billion fund. How do you have any idea how much of that fund has been used up? And does it make sense to continue applying for the $10,000 emergency grant?
I do not. I do not at all. I don't know how much any of these programs have been utilized as far as their allocation so far. And it is such a fluid situation that I would speculate it would be difficult. I'm sure the SBA would be the source and would know that because they're providing those approvals and they're tracking that. But that information has not been disseminated out that I'm aware of.
Great. We have another question here. Can a business make multiple PPP applications with different banks?
Okay, that's a great question, and it's my understanding, once again, that you can do one PPP application per business. So if you have separate businesses, then you could potentially have a separate PPP application with various banks, but it is, I think the application, it's very, very clear that you can only apply with one bank per company.
Great. Next question. I guess the question was if you apply for more than one PPP or submit more than one PPP application for a business, it's just to get ahead in the line, so to speak, meaning if one bank gets approval faster than the other, is that allowable?
Yeah, I would discourage that activity. Okay. And I have not filled out one of the applications myself, but it's my understanding that there is very specific language in the application and the agreement that there would only be one. And so if two banks have the application and two banks have approved it, then that could lead to some difficulty with adhering to the agreement.
Yeah. The next question is, how many PPP applications has BBVA received so far?
Once again, excellent question. I don't have those statistics either, but it has been robust.
So we are at the end of our questions as of right now. Does anyone else have any questions? You can type it into the Q&A box. And if we don't have any additional questions, Key, I probably have a couple more questions for you, and then we can kind of close out. And so the next question is BBVA open for taking applications for PPP, and has it started processing, and has any, and are any being processed? And I think you answered that. Correct me if I'm wrong. You mentioned that
yes.
BBVA started processing on Friday, and you've processed several applications so far. And so, Key,
that is correct.
If someone wants to work with BBVA, maybe they're not a current client, but they bank with somebody else, their current bank isn't offering the PPP program, or they're not yet a qualified lender with the SBA, how can they work with you?
You're saying, so once again, the question is their financial institution is not participating?
Right, but they would like to apply for a PPP loan, and they're considering working with BBVA. Is that a possibility?
Yes.
And if so, how would they do
yes.
that?
Yes, it is a possibility. And there are two different ways that they can do that. We have an online program that we actually, the volume became so extensive that we had to temporarily, I think the magnitude overwhelmed the system a little bit. We had to shut that down, but I think that's going to be coming back up. But outside of that methodology, they can reach out to one of their bankers if they know someone at BBVA. If not, then I would ask them. I'll certainly provide you with several bankers' names, Neil, within our SBA program or other bankers, and we would encourage them reaching out to them. It would involve them opening up a new account with us, and certainly we would love that opportunity. I will tell you that easiest avenue is if their institution is participating in the program and they have their operating or their payroll accounts, certainly their payroll accounts with that institution, that would be the quickest avenue. But we would be delighted to try to work with anybody and everybody.
Thank you, Key. We don't have any, we have another question here.
Okay.
This particular individual and his business has a 20-year relationship with BBVA. Is this of any advantage, or is it preferred or easier to process since BBVA already has the account information? I believe that the question is, does having an existing relationship with BBVA help in processing the application?
Some of the information from that account will be required. And so verification of signers, we may already have the corporate resolution or the partnership agreement. So that's information that we would not have to collect from the borrower. And we would not also have to set up new accounts if we're going to be funding into those accounts. So that should expedite the process if we have an existing client, yes.
Great. Any other questions? Well, Key, I think we are good. It doesn't look like we have any additional questions at this time. And I appreciate your willingness to share the information with me. We will get that out to our members via our Chamber's newsletter. So if you can send over those banking contacts, we will be sure to share that information out. And do you have any final thoughts for us? Any parting words for now?
Well, Neil, I once again, I just want to reiterate how flattered and honored I am that you reached out to ask me to participate in this morning. You know, these are uncharted territories, uncharted waters that none of us have ever been in before. But as the eternal optimist, I'm convinced that we're going to come through this and we're going to come through this stronger than we were before. I want to reemphasize that BBVA is there to assist our clients in these uncertain times and to do everything possible to help you and your businesses to continue to move forward and to come up beyond this pandemic in a grand fashion.
Well, thank you for that, Key. And I know our members appreciate your longstanding support of the Chamber and your participation in our programs. We echo that sentiment. We're here for all of our members and for the community. It's one of the reasons we started hosting these webinars. We recognize that business owners are in tight spots, and so this is our third week of webinars that we are hosting, and we sincerely appreciate you taking the time to field the questions from our members on how they can participate in these programs and hopefully weather the storm and come out stronger on the other end. So thank you for your participation, and thank you all for joining us. Our next webinar will be on Wednesday at noon. It is a marketing webinar by Nectar OM. Nectar OM, if some of you recall, participated in our 2017 technology conference. They were one of our panelists, and they are a omni-channel marketing company working with small, medium, and large businesses. This company will be helping you to think through how you can use this time once you get through your loan applications and all of that, how you can start to use this downtime, if you have any, to think about how you want to come out stronger on the other end. And so we will be hosting that webinar with the CEO of Nectar OM, Amrit Kirpalani, and we invite all of you to join us. The registration information went out in our newsletter on Friday. It'll go out again tomorrow, and we encourage you to join us for that webinar. And on Friday, we have a 3-hour webinar from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It is a webinar being facilitated by the Patel Law Group. They are bringing in several different attorneys to talk through legal concerns from multi-tenant landlords, individuals operating in the hospitality industry. And they will be fielding questions on what landlords can do during this time, how they can also apply for these disaster loans and whatnot. And then we will also be taking some of that time to answer questions related to wills, trusts, and estates, which I know has been coming up, especially for a lot of first responders. They want to make sure their affairs are in order, just given the risk that they are taking at this time. Not a pleasant subject to be discussing right now, but I think one that's absolutely necessary. So join us on Friday for that webinar. That'll be from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. On Friday, and you can join in as your schedule permits. We'll provide you with a more updated schedule as we get closer to that webinar. And again, if you are not subscribed to the Chamber's newsletter, I encourage you to go ahead and subscribe. You can subscribe from our homepage at www.usicoc.org. And you can subscribe up at the top. There's a link that says subscribe to newsletter. You just enter your email address. And just note that sometimes the emails go to junk and you'll have to move the Chamber to being a safe sender. And then you can receive all of our webinar information there. And so with that, I want to thank you, Key, again for your time this morning. Thanks to BBVA Compass for your support of the Chamber. And we look forward to supporting all of our members in any way that we can during this time. So thank you all. Have a great week. I hope that you have a very productive week, and we will see you or connect with you on Wednesday. Thank you. Thank you, Key.
Thank you, Neil. Bye-bye.